Good evening, everyone. Gareth Presh, founder of the World Health Innovation Summit, and this evening I'm talking to Lindsay Robinson. This is WHISTalks. Lindsay, good evening. I'm delighted
Good.
you can join us.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. Lindsay Robinson has set up a movement. Have you seen that girl in Northern Ireland? And myself and Lindsay have met at the House of Commons a few times. And this evening, we're going to find out exactly what she's been up to. Lindsay, could you give us a bit of a background and an introduction and tell the audience where you're from and what you do?
Yeah, no problem. Thanks so much for having me, Gareth. So I am in Belfast in Northern Ireland. That's where we live. I have a little boy, Ruben, who's 6, and my husband, Gavin. So we live in Belfast, and I set up Have You Seen That Girl because I really struggled myself in pregnancy, and then later on, for about 2 years after Ruben was born, I really struggled with severe mental ill health, and I started Have You Seen That Girl just to, I guess, reach out to other mums. And as things do, as we've kind of chatted about before, it's all snowballed. And I find myself here in this season, in this time, and Have You Seen That Girl has nearly taken on a life of its own. And it's been brilliant to be part of. It's brilliant to do, but I never expected I'd be here talking to the likes of you.
Oh, fantastic. We're going through the COVID situation at the moment, and I think we have to kind of start with this question. What's it like? What's it been like for, and have you any advice for mothers out there, who are so, during this challenging time?
Yeah, I think the honest thing I say now is there are ups and downs. There are some days that go really well, and there are some days where it literally feels like we are limping along. And the more I talk to more mums and dads and everybody really online at the minute, I think that is the honest reality for most of us. And I'll be honest, you see at the start, whenever lockdown happened and we were going to be doing homeschooling, I had all these fantastic plans, all the printouts, the little school table made, had this lovely idea in my head of how it was all going to look. And by about 2 days in, I suddenly realized, oh no, let go of these perfect ideas. This is a new season. You've never been here before. We're just going to have to learn as we go. And I think over these last few weeks, I have just learned that a bit more. I need to go with the flow. Every day is not going to be perfect. It is nearly impossible to work and teach a child at home, never mind keep everything else going and keep everybody's mental health in the right place. So my advice is genuinely go easy on yourself. Don't expect it to be perfect. None of us know what we're doing, really. We're all learning as we go. And so do what it is that makes it okay for you and your family. Don't compare yourself to what you see online. I spent too many days doing that, seeing what everybody else was doing and thinking, oh, better write that down and I've got this wrong. No, find a rhythm that works for you and your family and stick to that, and don't worry about what anybody else is doing.
And have many, do you find many people reaching out to yourself? You have a wide network. Have many people got in touch with yourself? Are they asking what sort of best practices? How are the medical services dealing with this as well from a maternal point of view? How have you found that support?
Yeah, so one of the great things is a lot of our online organizations, like our charities and our voluntary organizations, are doing so much more online. So most of them who were running programs, in-person programs, have now transferred those all to online. So yes, I will have a lot of parents getting in touch with me to say, where do I find community? Where do I find friendship? And the fantastic thing is that a lot of stuff has moved online. So there is that support still available, which I am signposting lots of parents to. And that's all different types of stuff. Some of it's very definitely mental health. Some of it literally is baby classes or fun or activities for kids and families. And the maternity side of things, obviously that is difficult because giving birth and even going to antenatal appointments looks different. Often you can't take your partner with you. You have to go on your own. And giving birth, maybe the birth plans that you had before look very different now in the light of where we are. So there are mums and dads who are definitely struggling through that. And what I can say is, particularly in Northern Ireland, our public health agency and our staff are working really well to help and support to mums and to get information out there and to let them know what is possible and what just isn't. But I mean, it's difficult. I think we have to be honest and say we've never done this before, so it isn't easy.
And is there any lessons that can be learned? I mean, because you do quite a lot of advocacy. I mean, the social isolations that mums feel. Is there anything there that you can kind of share from your experience that you feel will be beneficial to other mums out there at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, so it feels very different because obviously whenever I was exceptionally ill, all I wanted to do was stay in the house. I wanted to isolate myself. I felt safe in the house. I really struggled to go out. And it really has hit me actually in these last few weeks as I now have to be in the house, and I would quite like to get out the door. Just how important connection and friendship and socializing is for mum and the whole family. I mean, that's what keeps us well. It keeps us in a good rhythm of life. And so I suppose I am saying to mums, okay, get out for a walk if you can. We're still allowed to get out, particularly here, we're allowed to get out and exercise, get out, because you don't know who you meet along the way. Of course, stay at social distance, but, have a chat across the fence, stop and talk to somebody at a proper distance, but also make use, if you can, of the online forums that are about. So chats like this with people, online groups that are organising activities, because connection really is key. I don't think I can say that loudly enough. Being at home alone is not good for anyone, and particularly not for mental health and well-being. So find connection points that work for you and tap into those. If you can't do it every day, at least every week.
Absolutely, I totally agree. I mean, and tell me a little bit, why did you start Have You Seen That Girl? And where did you get the name?
Yeah, I know, it's strange, isn't it? So Have You Seen That Girl is the title of an American country music song by Leanne Womack. I'm a major American country music fan, like Cowboy Hat, but yeehaw, all that
yeah.
But the lyrics of that song are, have you seen that girl that everybody says I used to be? Have you seen that girl? Where along the way did I lose me? Have you seen that girl? And I just, honestly, those lyrics completely and utterly sum up the first 2 years of my little boy's life, because I lost myself in the midst of mental ill health. I mean, I looked in the mirror every day and I didn't know who I was anymore. And that was frightening. It was a very dark and difficult place. And as I began to come out of that, I listened to that song over and over, and I thought, if anything describes where I've been, that is it. And so I started to write my story on an old blog I had. I called it Have You Seen That Girl at that stage. And I thought I'd just chat a bit, share a few stories of what I'd been through. I didn't expect it, as I said before, to go anywhere, but as I began to share, honestly, I was inundated with mums and dads and grannies and aunts and healthcare professionals just saying, we need to talk about this, or I'm there, where do I get help and support? And I just suddenly realized, oh my goodness, there's a whole world out there of this issue that isn't being talked about, and we need to do something about it. And as I say, it's just developed over these last nearly 5 years now into what it is today.
It's very brave. I think it's very important work that you're doing, because I think looking after the family unit and ensuring that women have support and families have support is just vital. And I think it takes a lot of bravery to do what you've done, to set this up. Tell me what are the aims and objectives and some of the highlights for yourself over the last couple of years?
So I suppose there's the few things that Have You Seen That Girl does, very much about raising awareness. So raising awareness, particularly with mums and with dads, about the importance of mental health and what it looks like, and how to look after it. And we do that particularly via the website. On the website, we have about 100 different stories from mums and dads from all over who just are sharing their experience. So just to raise awareness, not every story looks the same, of course. Mm-hmm. So somebody can connect with something different. So raising awareness is a big part of what we do. And we also do a lot of signposting, as I've said, to support. So obviously I don't run groups myself. I signpost on to whether that's charity or volunteer organisations or some of the PHA-based groups that happen as well. And we do that via online, and also a leaflet that we've sent out about 8,000 of those leaflets over the last 2 or 3 years in Northern Ireland. So those tend to be requested a lot by midwives and health visitors and GP surgeries and places that know that they're going to come into contact with mum and want to have something to give. And on that we have links to help and support and signs and symptoms, and just it's a nice kind of like easy going, easy reading, but very much mums, you're not alone message on it. Mm-hmm. And then I suppose I do an awful lot of work with training. So I do quite a bit with like the Royal College of Psychiatry here in Northern Ireland for training. and I do a lot with the Royal College of Midwives and the Institute of Health Visiting, particularly here, just to train staff on mum's experience of mental ill health, what was good and what wasn't, and where were the ups and downs, and what to look out for, and what mum needs to hear and doesn't need to hear. And then as we know each other, then I do an awful lot of campaigning. So I would be around quite a bit, or obviously not right now, but quite a lot in Stormont and in Westminster, campaigning for better services for mums and families, particularly specialist services for perinatal mental health. So it keeps me busy.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. And what do you see? I mean, barrier-wise, challenges or opportunities? Where do you see the big opportunities, particularly now, I suppose, going through COVID? And have you thought about, the Sustainable Development Goals and SDG 3, because they have quite a strong focus on maternity and mental health in the future?
Yeah, well, I suppose particularly in Northern Ireland, we are at the stage where we have had no change to the support that is available for mums and families for 10, 20 years. We've very much been at standstill. So our campaign for specialist services, up until literally just before COVID hit, was at a really crucial point. It looked like we were getting to the stage where things were maybe going to come together, and actually we were going to get some good news around a business case and some investment and funding. And obviously that's on hold at the minute. Although I am still campaigning in a positive way to continue to that on. But I think one of the things that we've really been trying to home to our health minister and to our Department of Health is that this scenario we're in at the minute has really shown the importance of family units and of mental health. And goodness, I feel like that's something we haven't really talked about enough as a society. I mean, I completely understand where we're at with COVID, but the mental health aspects of what we're going through at the minute are not to be forgotten. I mean, goodness me, the number of mums and family units who are really struggling at this time. There's a huge opportunity there to get this right and to learn from what we've got wrong in the past and put things in place. But I realise, as I think you will do, there's just so much going on. So where I can be a voice and a positive voice, I'm trying to do that. But there's a huge opportunity for us all to look at our mental health and wellbeing services right from the bottom up and see where we can make change.
And you mentioned your research in that, and do you look at value creation? This is something I always ask about. So when you're doing your research, because a lot of the work that you're doing, we don't really measure it. So we don't look at, because you put a lot of time, you put a lot of effort into it. You're reaching out to a lot of people. You're connecting people. You're embracing people. You're providing that support, which we're not able to give professionally, shall we say, at the moment. However, if we build a business case around, this is where the possible opportunities are. How much money are you saving the exchequer, for example, based on your interventions? There could be quite an interesting opportunity there, particularly in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that we have said very much in all of our business cases is that this is not just a mum issue. And sometimes it's very easy just to sort of say, oh, it's just mums. Actually, it's a whole family issue. So therefore, it's a whole society issue. And if we get perinatal mental health right, then we are getting infant mental health right. And we're tackling a lot of things that could go wrong for families and for little ones in the future. And that costs a whole lot of money. Not to be mercenary about it, but it does cost a lot of money. So let's get it right in the first place. And also, falls very much underneath what we would call our Protect Life campaign here in Northern Ireland, in that the leading cause of maternal death is still suicide. And so if we can tackle mental health well in antenatal and postnatal, we're doing something in that as well. So it doesn't just fit into one aspect of society. It's not just within our health department. Actually, it goes into all different, education, community. It's spread wide, and it's trying to get that message. It doesn't sit in its own. Let's not put it in a silo. It's much bigger than that. It has bigger implications.
It's interesting. I was just thinking there, do you think it's worth having a program in schools, like and I mean, like kind of almost like preconception, to talk about these issues? You just gave me a bit of an idea there. I was just thinking about, if you could address some of these issues. Do you do a lot of school work? Do you work with colleges or universities?
Not in this job, not in this thing I do at the minute. Before, I would have done a lot of skills work in a different role. No, that's probably a very good idea. What we have done in Northern Ireland, which is fantastic, is we have developed an organisation called AWARE, alongside our public health agency, have developed a Mood Matters Parent and Baby programme, which is antenatal education program all about mental health, which is open to every mum and dad and partner to go along to for about 3 or 4 sessions. And it honestly is all about how to look after your mental health, what it maybe looks like if you're struggling, and where to turn for health and support. So that is part of our antenatal education program now in Northern Ireland, which is really important. And I think it's something that we need to grow, because I honestly believe if we give parents the tools early on to recognise the importance of mental health, but also to be able to look out even for one another, to see when maybe somebody is struggling, then they can be that help and support to reach out for when the other person needs it. So it's not putting all of the onus on healthcare professionals, but it's actually giving mums that feeling of a little bit of power back, because that's what I felt I lost. I felt completely powerless and clueless to know what was wrong with me. And had I had those tools and those resources, I would have been able to ask in a different way for help and support.
That's probably the hardest thing to do, isn't it? It's asking for help. It's coming to that conclusion where you need to say to yourself, I need help. You know, you put your hand up and you say, I think that's one of the things you need to learn, isn't it? As we grow older, we kind of mature and we begin to understand, well, I can't do this all on my own. Like, is there a tool? How did you come out of that situation? Like, what advice would you give, to anyone watching this broadcast?
So I did ask for help and support in the first two or 3 months when Ruben was little, and I didn't get it. And that has been a big reason why I've done a lot of training, because I firmly believe had the people I was asking for help and support really known what they were looking for, it would have been very different. And the advice I give now to mums and families when they say they're going to talk to somebody is GP, health visitor, midwife. And if you go and see one of those and you don't get the response or the reaction that you would expect, you don't come out with help and support, go and see somebody else. I was too frightened. I had no idea I could even ask. But if you don't get what you think you need from the person you go and see, please don't be afraid to go and ask to see somebody different. I normally say as well, before you go to speak to anybody, write down how you're feeling, because I get into appointments even still today to talk about mental health and get a bit nervous or flustered or forget even what it is I need to say. So I say, write it down, and don't be afraid to say, listen, I'm just going to read through this, because actually it's really helpful for the person you're sitting in front of, because they can even look at your notes and pick out things that you haven't majored on. So those are probably the 2 key things. And actually, once you've seen a healthcare professional, if that's who you need to see, don't be afraid to come to the likes of myself or the charity or voluntary sector, because actually there are fantastic things happening in the community as well. Just sometimes knowing where to look, and so connect into maybe what's happening in your area. There are lots of different organisations like the Maternal Mental Health Alliance, which was across the UK, even NCT, which will have links and support to things that are happening in your area. There's the Perinatal Mental Health Partnership, who organised the Awareness Week last week. So if you go onto any of their stuff, you'll be able to get links across the whole of the UK. But to anyone watching who thinks this is hard and I need help, I just want to say you're not alone, and help is there. It is available.
Absolutely. I'm just going to say, if anyone has a question for ourselves, for Lindsay here, please do type it into the chat box. I know we have Marinella joining us from Switzerland, but if anyone else there wants to join in and ask a question, please feel free to do so. Also, if you can share the feed with your friends and on Facebook, that would be fantastic. So Lindsay, and we'll also post some of the links that Lindsay spoke about in the chat box later. Tell me the next steps as we come out of the lockdown, and when we get, we start getting back, shall we say, to somewhat normality. What do you see the challenges for your community? What's your next steps? Because I presume you'll have a lot of people reaching out to you who want support, particularly now, they want to meet back up.
Yeah. So I think it is when the time is right, seeing all of those groups re-established again. And again, I suppose like everything, it's going to be the funding and everything that's going to need to be again in place. I realise a lot of groups have lost funding, or have money is just not in the same place as it was 3 months ago. So we're going to need to make sure that investment comes into a lot of that grassroots stuff that people actually do on really goodwill, which is fantastic, but it shouldn't have to always be that way. I mean, I'm so thankful for all of those who do, but we should see proper funding into those things that are actually taking a burden off our health service, so those things should be properly funded, to be fair.
I totally agree with you, and I think also we've seen the value of those services during this time. I think it's an opportunity for us to look at this, because most of our funding goes towards, the the current system, which is towards, disease management. And then when conditions develop, we put money into solving those problems rather than a preventative model. And really your model is just completely preventative. You're trying to tackle the issue before it raises its head. Do you have is there, within your group, you mentioned experts in that you're working with in some of the colleges and that, what do you see as the future around, mental health and perinatal mental health? Will it go towards a digital side of things? Because we're seeing a lot of innovations, are you looking at that at all as an intervention, or do you still think it's very much a personal relationship and building that relationship within the community on a one-to-one basis?
So I think there's probably place for everything. I think technology has a real great role to play in society, and that is actually where a lot of people are these days, particularly now we're all online, aren't we, with COVID, and we're seeing the benefit of online connection. So I think that's vitally important, but I don't think we could ever take away, particularly where mental health and mental well-being is about that importance of physical community and seeing somebody face to face and having a conversation with somebody there. I mean, Zoom is fab, but actually I've read a lot of research recently to say that people are very tired and weary when they come off the likes of a Zoom call because you're not getting that personal interaction. So we have to be here at the minute, but there's got to come a time when we do get back out and we do see each other face to face, and we do put our arm around somebody, or we do have a cup of tea together, or break a bit of chocolate off, because actually all that is part of community, of healing, of learning, and of sharing. So there's room. I think there's room for everything. There's room for both, but we desperately will need to get back into community properly, physically again at some point, hopefully soon.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think it's absolutely vital. I think as well in this space, if you can have focus groups and also expert groups. I know down the road, there's been a fantastic initiative called the Happy Mums Foundation, which was established here. And I mean, they run many kind of exercise classes and that and just drop-in sessions for having a cup of tea, and I think they're hugely beneficial for the wider community as well. It would be, hopefully in the future we can get some evidence behind the cost savings and others, because I think there's a whole business case that can be developed there. For yourself later this year, what's the plans, and how do people get involved to help yourself? What's the best way to contact yourself?
So later this year, so once things go wherever they're going, whatever normal it is that we look like we're going to have, I am very much continuing to campaign here for the specialist services. So I am doing it a bit in the background at the minute, but just very aware that we've got to be sensitive in how we handle that. But there is going to have to be a time when that campaigning for access to specialist services for mums and dads in Northern Ireland is right back up on my agenda. And because 80% of us here don't have those services available, so many mums and families go without continually every year that important service that they need and deserve. So that is probably that's my long-term goal. I always say I'm not going to quit until I see at least that pathway properly engaged. So that's a big thing for whenever we come out of that. And I guess in these next few months, I just want to continue to raise awareness. So during Maternal Mental Health Week last week, we really focused on messages to mums. So that message to mums of you matter, you're enough, you're not alone, you'll get through this, and you're amazing. Because I think sometimes as mums, we just don't hear that enough. So it's really continuing over these next few months to reach out to mums directly with just a message of hope. And for anybody who's interested or wants to get involved, come onto the website or come and join us on one of our social media channels. If you're a mum or a dad and you have a story to share, then we'd love to feature that. If you want to find out a bit more about the campaigning and what that looks like and what stage we're at, give us a message and we'll fill you in. Things look a bit different now. Obviously, we don't have all of the events that we normally have, and we're not out and about, but we will get back to that someday. And the more of us that are doing it, the better. So come join us.
Just explain the specialist services that you mentioned. Can you just give us a little bit of background of what that entails? Because I'm sure the audience would like to know what you mean by that, because it's important for people to understand how things go. What are the specialist services needed for? So
if a mum is particularly unwell, so perhaps with moderate to severe depression, anxiety, birth trauma in the first year or two after after giving birth, and they would access some sort of specialist services. And normally that looks like a specialist team. So the team will have psychiatrists, psychology, midwife, health visitor, CPNs, so nurses, social work, and those people will all be trained particularly in perinatal mental health, and those people will all work together to support the mum and the family in various ways and in holistic ways to get them back on that path to wellness. At the minute in Northern Ireland, we have in Belfast, we have 5 health trusts, and in our Belfast Health Trust, some people, if you live in the right postcode, have access to a very small team of that. So not a full team, but a small team. And the rest of Northern Ireland have no access to any of that. So we do have fantastic health visitors and midwives, etc., but they don't have time to work specialists in perinatal mental health. So that's what we're campaigning to see, 5 separate teams set up across Northern Ireland so that everybody, no matter where you live, has access to that team to support you if you really struggle with mental ill health. And the other thing we don't have is we don't have a mother and baby unit. So that means if a mum is very unwell and needs to be an inpatient for mental health reasons, they go into an adult psychiatric ward and they can't bring their baby with them. Which is just not suitable at all, particularly in those early days for bonding, for feeding, so that can't. It's also not good for the whole of the family because you can't easily bring, maybe a little baby and 2 other little ones to an adult mental health ward, and have a family visit and a play outside. So that as well.
Very traumatic, I would imagine, for everyone involved in those situations. I know that it's. Services are always hard. Yeah, I mean, the biggest challenge we face is obviously recruitment. I mean, I think that's going to be a real challenge for us in the future. Hopefully, we can address these things by the work you're doing, by offsetting these issues before they happen. These are probably the opportunities of the future. Can you just give us a bit of an example, maybe around best practice? Who do you follow? Who do you kind of look towards seeing, right, these guys are really ahead of the curve here, they're doing some great work? Is it UK based, or do you sometimes look to maybe Scandinavia? Or I'm just trying to get a sense of what you see as being best practice, or
Well, so I personally campaign as part of the Maternal Mental Health Alliance, which works across obviously the UK, and so the facts and the figures and the campaigning all comes from them. So I guess there are certain parts in England where we would say the map is green, which means that they have excellent access to specialist mental health services and access to mother and baby units. And then there are other parts of the map within the UK where the map is red, like in Northern Ireland, which means very limited or no access. So I would be looking personally from the campaigning work I do in Northern Ireland, given that it's part of the UK, to what is best practice over there and taking a lot of leads from that. I know there's great work also happening in Scotland, so a lot of my colleagues here within the psychiatry would team up a lot. I suppose there's quite a lot of we're quite similar in Northern Ireland to Scotland, if that makes sense. So we'd be looking to see what they're doing, but I think there should be always room for learning. That's the bottom line, isn't it? We should be always constantly challenging ourselves to see who is doing it well, who is doing it best, and what can we learn from them to bring back here.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree. I mean, I was reading a paper, or I've been reading recently about the need for women's health clinics, particularly across the UK. But I believe this is, something that's needed. You've just given, a very good insight into Northern Ireland. I would imagine it's very much needed, having some sort of, I think some people are looking at, clinics on the high street even to support women, which I think would be a fantastic idea, to be honest with you. I think I mentioned we've been looking at working with the Raja Gangapati, Dr. Gangapati, about putting together a global pregnancy program, which we're excited about. But I do think there's going to be a big need for supporting women in the future. What's your thoughts on that? Do you think that's a big need there?
Yeah, I think and I love that idea of having somewhere physically on high streets or in towns or in villages, because you've got to meet people where they're at. I don't mind what it is you're doing, but if you're not meeting people where they are, you're going to miss them. And I think we can't always expect people to come to us or to always come out to services. Actually, services, I just think well-being and mental health is holistic. It really should be a normal part of life. It shouldn't be something that's separate. So to have centres for women's health in the middle of the street where they go and buy the nappies for the baby or go and have a look for a coffee with a friend actually just normalizes looking after ourselves.
Interestingly, I was in Finland last year. We were there, and they have a very interesting model where they had, in the libraries where they have their health clinics and that, and it was where mothers and that can meet. It was fascinating. It worked very well. Like, I mean, there's a lot of lessons that can be learned. I think perhaps looking at, can we centralize particular services which give, value to communities, which encourage people to get out and get socially active and engage with each other, so we can share each other's best practices. What do you think of that as an idea? Would that work well in Northern Ireland? Or
I love it. I think you mentioned two things there. Community is just so important, and that social aspect as well. So again, it's not, some things are not hidden behind closed doors. They're just part of where you naturally might go during the week, so where you might naturally bump into people, and just normalizing seeing people socializing that way, but also talking about their health and well-being. I think that's a fantastic idea. The more we take it away from something clinical, because clinical is frightening to most people. We don't like that idea, do we? But actually, mental health and well-being doesn't have to be clinical. It's just part of who we all are.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's the best way to put it. If you can make it simple for people as well, so that people can understand that it's not that complex. And finally, just tell me, do you have any final messages for everyone, tuning in, or anything you want to kind of end on?
I suppose so. This week coming is Mental Health Awareness Week, which I'm sure you know, and the theme for that is kindness. And I suppose I just want to encourage everybody. I've been thinking a lot recently. We're always very good about thinking about how we be kind to other people, and particularly in COVID, there's been some fantastic stories of kindness among communities, and let's keep doing that. Let's keep reaching out. But I think let's remember to be kind to ourselves, because I think all of us, no matter what age or stage we are very quick to be critical and very hard on ourselves. And we don't always look to be kind to our own heart and soul. And sometimes I think if we were a bit more kind to ourselves, then things would be very different for all of our mental health and well-being. So in this coming week particularly, let's all take strides to be kind to ourselves and to those around us.
What a fantastic message. Thank you very much for sharing that. I think that's the right way forward as well. And we should end it on that note by being kind to each other. I totally agree with you. Listen, Lindsay, thanks very much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Next week for WHISTalks on Sunday at 7 p.m, you can tune in. I'll be talking to Ingolf and Paulina Werdner, who have set up the SDG Orchestra and a startup called Apatio. And we're going to find out about music, the arts, and what that sort of can play in the future of our health and well-being. So thank you very much, Lindsay. And thanks to everyone for joining in. And we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.